What's up, everybody? Welcome into the Week 14 recap of the Ravens-Rams game of the Real Talk Ravens podcast.
What a win.
You're telling me that was the game of the year for the Ravens by far. The fact that we came back from a fourth quarter deficit and then had to go into overtime and finish it out from the most unexpected person ever,
Right.
Tylan, Wallace, with the big punt return for the win in overtime. Final score is 37-31. We have moved to 10-3 now, number one seed in the AFC prior to the Monday Night Football game. Because if Miami wins, I believe they hold the tiebreaker. They play Tennessee tonight at home, so they will most likely win and will be the number 2 seed going into Week 15. But if they don't, then we'll be the number 1 seed.
Some more good news around the division. Actually not around the division, around the conference, with the Chiefs losing again, and with
Jacksonville
and the Texans and the Colts losing again, because the Colts have a tiebreaker over us. So, we gained a little distance there. Unfortunately, it was at the expense of the AFC North winning. The Browns, the Bengals and the Browns are both looking pretty good. About as good as they can be with the situations they're in.
Yeah, I still don't believe the Bengals have enough talent to make the playoffs, but I do think the Browns are a team that there's a good chance we end up seeing them again in the playoffs. And, of course, we're probably going to see the Joe Flacco in January. But, hey.
It's okay. They only beat us because they had Deshaun Watson. That's literally the only.
I don't have any concern about us versus Flacco because our pass rush versus immobile quarterbacks. Flacco at this stage of his career is not mobile, so I'm not worried about him in that sense. So I think we'd be all right against them with that matchup. But just getting back to our game, looking at some injuries. Kyle Hamilton exited the game with a knee injury, but big time reports today came out saying that he is actually it's a very minor sprain of his MCL. He actually could be optioned to play this week.
My guess is he'll probably sit out a week.
I don't think they're going to rush him coming back since we play San Francisco in 2 weeks, and that's the biggest game. Them and Miami back-to-back, those two are huge for us. So unless he's like dang near 100% ready to go on Sunday, then I don't see him playing.
Yeah, probably not. Just give him the rest.
Yep. And then Devin Duvernay exited the game with a back injury. They actually said he actually has the longer-term injury of the two. So he didn't really dive in. Harbaugh didn't really dive into how long-term it would be, but it sounds like it's going to be multiple weeks, which is fine because I think with the way Tylan Wallace took a freaking kickback, I think we're going to be able to fill that void pretty easily.
Yeah, at least, we'll have a competent returner,
Yeah. And then the other news with the injuries is Pepe Williams, his designated to return window, I think he has to be added this week. Probably, I think tomorrow is the day that we would learn with that. We don't have to drop anyone off the active roster because we never filled the void with Mark Andrews going to the IR. So he would just basically take that spot from Mark Andrews, and we wouldn't have to release anyone. And with Kyle Hamilton potentially being out, we could see Pepe Williams in that nickel role a little bit maybe this week, or at least a backup.
I would like to see him play. Apparently he's good, but you never get to see it because he doesn't play.
Yeah, so it would be basically him and Arthur Millette in the nickel. Good news is we are pretty deep at safety, knowing that we have Stone and Marcus Williams. Then I believe Daryl Worley would be their next backup. So pretty solid there. But I think just initial reactions for me would be Sean McVay definitely exposed Mike McDonald's defense in ways that he hasn't seen this year. And I think I don't think it was necessarily a knock on Mike McDonald himself as a coach, because I think he did a good job of mixing up his defenses. But it was more so just McVay knowing exactly who he wanted to pick on and exactly how to get the matchups and the leverages that he wanted to get by, doing motions pre-snap, getting to different formations and different splits. And by doing that, it allowed, I think, Matt Stafford to just kind of have an option A or an option B every time. He didn't really have to read the full field progression. It was either one guy was going to be open or the other guy was going to be open. And with the talent that the Rams have at receiver, one of those guys are almost always open.
Cooper Kupp was getting on my nerves on those blitzes.
Well, yeah, we were basically mixing it up. And then when we went into that man coverage, you would have liked to seen us match up in man coverage with Cooper Kupp with, one of our stronger DBs instead of Arthur Millette. I mean, no knock against him, but he's not our best corner that we have.
Right.
But I think twice, one was the touchdown he scored. The other one was a big third down that they converted. And Matt Stafford just floated up. I will say Matt Stafford played a pretty impeccable game from his standpoint.
Oh, yeah. The Rams are playing like a playoff team right now. And I think that if they find their way in the playoffs, they might win a game too.
I definitely believe that Rams team looked the most like the Rams we saw 2 years in the Super Bowl than they have in a long time.
Right.
And that's the reason why they went out and got Matt Stafford, and they didn't want Jared Goff. Like we talked about in the preview of this episode, Matt Stafford is not going to shy away from competition or, even if he gets sacked once, he's not going to just fold the rest of the game like Jared Goff kind of does. He's very good about he's mentally strong. He's got a very strong mental, and obviously he's physically strong. He took one shot by, I think, Matabike or someone right in the ribs, and he comes back and he scores a touchdown on the next play or something like that.
Right. He's tough. He's also hurt a lot, so he's used to getting banged up. He's used to being banged up. He's a tough quarterback, and I thought that we might be able to kind of wear him down, but I was wrong.
Yeah. But then going to our offense, Lamar basically took the game over. I know a lot of people are probably like, oh, a lot of his throws seemed like they were underthrown or he wasn't accurate. But if you looked at the EPA, which is like your expected points added, and if you look at that for all the quarterbacks across the league for this week, he was number one and it wasn't even close. He provided the most points added per quarterback. He really just showed up clutch at the end of the regulation on that last drive on the 3rd and 17 pass to Zay Flowers, and then on the 2-point conversion that people I think overlooked. How he was able to quickly, it was a quick rollout, quickly evade rusher. And not only was it he had to also get off his first read and get to his second read because his first read was Isaiah Likely. He wasn't open. And then while he's throwing it, he's basically jumping in the air and getting hit by Aaron Donald at the same time. And he puts it right in the only spot that you can put it, so it doesn't get intercepted, and it's a perfect pass, toe tap by Zay Flowers, great route, and it was just all around
beautiful
clutch.
Throw, beautiful catch too. Like the catch that Zay had to make.
Yeah, I just think Lamar just put his big boy pants on and said, "All right, I'm going to put the team on my back," and he did it on that drive.
Yeah, that's the kind of play that quarterbacks that win championships have.
Exactly. And then, we got the ball first in overtime, and I was like, all right, Lamar just went off on his last drive in regulation. He's going to come out firing, and then we go 3 and out. And I was like, okay, here we go. Here's our good old Ravens.
I admittedly thought I was over there. All the Rams needed was a field goal.
Go 3 and out, and just the way that the games have been going for us in these types of games, we pretty much always go out 3 and out, and then the defense lets them go down and score either a field goal to win it or whatever. And it just, this time the defense stopped them, and we get the ball back. Actually, no, they punt the ball, and Tylan Wallace returns it. Coming in for the Devin Duvernay, never returned a punt in his NFL regular season career, and I think saved Chris Orton's job after this one.
Yeah, he really did.
Because earlier in the game, we have a 4th and 5, and and they play the play and everything, punt. And during the commercial break, we learned that we were apparently lined up off sides, which gives them the 5 yards and an automatic first down because it was 4th and 5. And they go down and score a touchdown. And just like that, it's like all the momentum we had, we scored a touchdown, make a big stop, just completely went away. And at that point, I was cursing out Chris Horton like crazy.
Oh, yeah. I mean, your midseason grade on him was...
That's why I said Tylan Wallace saved his job at the end. Tylan Wallace, not only we got to factor in the weather for a punt returner going in with the wind and the rain and catching it, catching it alone is extremely hard. And you could see that because the Rams punt returner dropped twice.
Well, he looked like he was about to lose his footing at one point, and he stayed upright, too.
He broke 4 tackles on that punt return for the touchdown. I know there was a questionable potential Charlie Kohler block in the back people were talking about, but I think it was a good no call. From rewatching it a few times, it looked like the defender was actually just diving at Tylan Wallace at the same time Charlie Kohler reached out to block him, and then I don't think he actually ever even touched him. So I think that we got lucky that because I think earlier in the season we got called for something, or someone else got called in one of our games for that same type of play. So yeah, I think that's my initial reaction. Anything else you can think of?
I mean, I just I really think that we did a good job of passing the ball, all things considered. I was really worried that we were going to have a tough time passing the ball just because of the weather and just because of how we tend to play in weather like that. I thought we were going to turn the ball over a lot, and we really didn't. I don't think we turned it over once, did we? Lamar
had one interception that he threw.
Yeah, he had the interception. But besides that, no fumbles. And, we actually really didn't run the ball that well for once. But
No,
it wasn't even by option. We just, we just passed. We chose to pass, and we dominated in the air. I'm sure if we had decided to stick with the run, it would have worked too. But we stuck with it in the air, and we proved that Lamar can pass, and he does have weapons. And Aguilar stepped up big. He made that read at the end with Zay Flowers, and he was not selfish. He could have been very selfish with that, but he didn't. He told Lamar what he saw, and it worked out.
Yeah, I mean, the only other thing that I can think of, just looking at the big picture, was initially I was upset when Harbaugh threw a challenge flag after a scoring play when they were going for 2. I was extremely upset, but then after I realized, he was probably just trying to take a timeout, and he confirmed that in his press conference that it was more so just trying to take that. He was going to take a timeout no matter what. So it was actually kind of smart.
You were heated. Don't lie.
I was extremely heated. I was like, what are we doing? Like, we know that we can't do that. But looking back, it was an amazing decision because not only do we get a timeout, and they have to go back and review the replay, which extends the timeout, and we get a longer timeout than a normal 30-second timeout. We have to go to the booth. They got to go and talk to the people back in New York, and they have all that communication going on. That's going to take longer than a regular 30-second timeout. So I think that was pretty much, a very high level play and did you see how far he chucked that red flag?
Yeah. It's right down to the field almost.
Dude, that was the farthest I think I've ever seen a challenge flag thrown.
It's kind of funny, dude. I'm glad I'm not the only one who noticed that because I was laughing pretty hard at that. It just kind of landed in the middle of the view of the camera. I was like, oh, okay.
And the coach's box is on the 25-yard line, so he had to chuck that thing 30 yards.
Yeah.
He's 62 years old, and he's throwing the challenge flag. I know 35 yards.
That's what kind of made me angrier was because I didn't realize what it was for.
I don't know if you caught this though on that touchdown that they scored to Demarcus Robinson that he tried to challenge. They said on the screen that there was a flag down, and it turns out that it was really just a yellow towel that had came off Demarcus Robinson because they're the Rams, they're yellow, colors. and it looked like a flag. And so I think Harbaugh first saw that, thinking they threw a flag on Demarcus Robinson for stepping out of bounds and coming back in. And because he said that in his press conference, that's what he thought it might have happened. But I think he was just going to take the chance regardless because he wanted to call a timeout.
Okay. That makes a little more sense because I was kind of just like, what the hell? Like he just like threw it so pronounced. It was such an aggressive throw.
But then when you see the replay, he wasn't even close to stepping out of bounds. So I was like, okay, so that wasn't even a real thing.
So about that on the broadcast too. They were like saying that they thought maybe he had thought.
Yeah. Well, I think it was everyone saw that yellow towel on the ground and thought it was a flag, and the only penalty we thought it could be was him stepping out of bounds because he was kind of close to it, a couple yards away. So, but as far as Harbaugh's decision making in this game, the only other like criticism that I could have is the 4th and 1 that we didn't go for. We punted late in the fourth quarter. It was basically the drive. It was the drive before the Rams' last drive, and we could have easily gone for it on 4th and 1. And I think Gus Bus, I'm going to bet that he gets that 9 out of 10 times.
Especially when they haven't really run the ball much to begin with. You know, he's
and then you got at the end of the game, you got a defensive line that's tired too. So
he's fresh.
Those guys have been chasing Lamar around all day. I mean, he literally had like 40 pass attempts in this game. So they were definitely a tired group on defense. So I think we should have probably gone for it, knowing that they were tired and it was 4th and 1, and the way that their offense was moving the ball. It literally, when we punted it to them, 2 plays later, they were at the exact same point on the field that we were when we would have went for it. So I was like, such a stupid decision. I know you got faith in your defense, but in this game, the way that it was going, you got to kind of get a feel for what's going on around you. Like, we're clearly going against a top offense in the NFL right now, and we don't really have any answers. So the only way that the Rams kind of didn't do good with offense at the end of the game there was when they hurt themselves by dropping passes or throwing a couple missed throws and penalties.
We adjusted all right to the running game, but they still probably could have gotten a lot more of a – they could have gotten like a lot better of a overtime drive if they had just run the ball against us, you know?
Dude, if I were Sean McVay after that first drive when they went 10 straight runs or whatever it was, I would have just done that the whole game.
Right.
But they pretty much went away from it after that first drive pretty significantly.
They were saying it too. They got to the red zone and threw it 3 times in the broadcast.
Yeah, that was the dumbest thing I think I've ever seen.
Right.
From Sean McVay. For being how smart he is, I would not expect him to do that. But just looking at the offense now, Lamar went 24 for 43, 316 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. Then he had 11 carries for 70 yards. I mean, that is a AFC Player of the Week numbers if I've ever seen them.
Right. And
I mean, I don't really know who else could put up AFC Player of the Week besides him this week.
Kind of like the same kind of numbers we would be seeing in 2019.
And I think, with Lamar, his biggest criticism, I guess it can be his biggest criticism because it's happened is, he hasn't necessarily had those game-winning drives. And I feel like he has, but then the defense lets him down with like 30, 45 seconds left. They go and let the other team go down and score and win it themselves. This time, it didn't end up that way. The defense held their own at in overtime, and Lamar had that key drive that you see from elite quarterbacks in game-winning times.
People forget about that Colts game. People forget about the Browns game. Lamar does this a lot. People forget about the Titans playoff game. Not the year we lost to them, the year we beat them.
Yeah, like I said, it's just been a lot of the lately. It seems like every time he does have one of those drives, then the defense just gives up a super quick scoring drive, and we lose.
I'm agreeing. I'm kind of people have seen Lamar do it, and when the defense holds up or he has the ball last, normally he can do it. Sometimes it doesn't work out. I mean, there are certain times where it's like frustrating, and you watch and it's like a 3-and-out, and then you're on 4th and 12, and of course you're not going to win then. But that happens to everyone.
This goes back to what I said on the bye week. I said I want to be in some tight games where we are forced with our backs against the wall to come from behind and win a game at the end. And this is exactly the type of game that I wanted to see. We were battle tested.
Right. Now we're going to get to play the Jaguars and then the 49ers and then the Dolphins. Game just prepared us that much more for those 3 games.
Plus the playoffs.
And don't forget the Steelers too. They'll probably be trying to make the playoffs. I hope we squash that bug.
I feel like the Steelers are going to be out of it by week 18. Way they're playing right now.
I hope they lose out.
I mean, they just lost to one of the worst teams in football, and the worst 2 teams, the Patriots and the Cardinals.
And now they're going to play an angry Colts team. That beat themselves.
Yeah, for sure.
They were in that game with the Bengals, and then they beat themselves.
So, like you said, the run game, we could not get going. But if you look at the numbers, it looks like we did all right. But I think a lot of that is exactly. It's kind of just misconceiving because of Lamar's runs. We ran for like 130 yards total, but 70 of that was from Lamar. So then you get 60 yards or so between both Keaton Mitchell and Gus Edwards. I think Gus Edwards had his worst game as a Raven, rushing like stats wise, 6 carries for 15 yards. Yeah. And then Keaton Mitchell did a much better job. I think he averaged like 5 yards per carry or something like that with like 50 yards.
Yeah. But we just didn't go on the ground that much. So
yeah, well, like I said, with Lamar's numbers, we threw the ball 43 times. How many times you can count on your hand how many times Lamar has thrown the ball 43 times in a game, probably in his career.
Yeah.
So it's good to see though that he did that and we won the game because of that.
Not only did he do that and we won the game, he did that at this point of the season.
Yes.
The point of the season where he hasn't been playing for the past 2 years, where we haven't gotten to see how he's evolved. And now we're seeing it. And
I think a lot of us as Ravens fans can say thank you to EDC for finally investing in some weapons for Lamar.
Yes. Let's not even forget Isaiah Likely stepping up with that touchdown.
Yeah, definitely a blown coverage, but he did turn it to what would have been like, maybe ball on like the 20-yard line or so to a touchdown because he beat the safety for the touchdown.
Right.
We all know he's got speed. So OBJ led the yardage with 4 catches for 97 yards and a touchdown. Isaiah Likely was number 2 with 5 catches, 83 yards and a touchdown. So he led with receptions. Actually, no, take that back. Zay Flowers led with receptions, 6 catches for 60 yards and a touchdown. And he also had the 2-point conversion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and then
what a game!
What Aguilar
game is Zay Flowers. What a
Aguilar had 2 huge 3rd down catches at the end of the game too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the fact that we can rely on these guys is just so nice to see. Lamar really doesn't have a true weakness that I can really see with his receiving group.
No,
I mean, Rashad Bateman's not producing, but I am good with saying he's still a solid guy, solid receiver that Lamar can throw to. I know people are giving him heck for, kind of pausing on that one deep post that Lamar threw the interception on, I think, or he overthrew one of the 2. I forget which one that was.
It was the
Yeah, and so people were upset that he kind of paused and didn't, finish his route out. But, that's just things. That thing happens to everybody. It's not just, you got to think in this offense playing with Lamar, a lot of the times he's looking back to see if Lamar starts scrambling so he can adjust and, get in phase with Lamar for the scramble drill. The other thing I noticed offensively that we did for the first time this season was we rotated our offensive tackles.
I know. I was happy to see that.
So we put in McCary. Not only did we put in McCary for left tackle, but we also put in Falele at right tackle for Moses. And this apparently from Harbaugh's press conference, it was the O-line coach's decision. I forget his name. It's a long name, Delisandros or something like that. He decided to, like, during the week, that was a good idea, and the players all agreed that it was a good idea, and it worked. It worked really well. And Harbaugh said that all the guys graded out really well, and the reasoning for doing with that was so that at the end of the game in the fourth quarter, Moses and Stanley would be, fresh. They wouldn't feel super exhausted and tired from playing a full game. So I honestly think that was a great decision.
And I think that's more just because they're kind of both coming off of minor injuries, but still, it's a.
And not only are you giving them, less reps on their bodies, but you're also providing these young guys valuable experience in case one of them does end up going down and they have to play a game in the playoffs or they have to finish out the season. Those guys could be huge. And we've already seen McCary quite a bit this year, so he's come out really huge. But God forbid both of those guys go down, and we need Falele to go in. So it would be good. It's good to see him out there. He only had, I think, one bad play, they said, but other than that, he looked pretty solid.
I don't even remember what his bad play was.
I didn't see it. It must have been in the run game because I didn't really see it either.
Yeah,
I'm going to watch the all 22 and go through that. But
yeah.
As far as, negative things, I would say offensively, the only negative thing I can think of is just needing to have a better plan versus blitz.
Yeah.
There were quite a few times where Lamar just was having unblocked guys in his face. And it caused us to just throw the ball away. It caused Lamar to take a few sacks. And it just seemed like we were not prepared for that.
I think I don't know. I think we were a little rusty coming off of the bye week. I think that we kind of shored things up a little bit towards the end of the game. I know we had that really good drive. There wasn't really too much pressure. There were a couple of plays on that last drive where Lamar had like 10 seconds to throw the ball, and it was kind of awkward. We really did adjust well. I think it was more so of just an early off the bye week kind of rest thing,
Yeah, but I think overall, like you said, the pass protection was really good. It was just when they brought those extra blitzers and they were bringing like 5 or 6 guys, and we didn't handle it very well. And I don't know if that was on Lamar not recognizing it pre-snap, which way he should slide the offensive line, or if it was on the offensive lineman for not, basically doing their assignment, and maybe they were double teaming a guy when they shouldn't have been.
Yeah.
I don't really know, but either way, we got to figure that out because other teams are going to see that on film and are just going to attack us by doing that. Especially some of those better defenses. If I were the Rams, I would have done that a little bit more since we were throwing the ball so much. And it was causing us fits a little bit. But the good news was Aaron Donald, we kind of pretty much neutralized.
Yeah, we were. They were showing that a couple of times. It was a little unorthodox, but it was working. So.
Yeah, we were putting like 3 offensive linemen on him with, and he obviously couldn't do anything. I think the biggest thing though that you got to kind of keep in mind with the Rams is they don't have a true athlete pass rusher like some of these teams do, and it allowed Lamar to just kind of scramble around, like you said, for 10 seconds plus at a time. With some of these teams, like even the Jaguars next week, with them having Josh Allen, the 49ers are going to have some elite guys. The Dolphins, I know they lost Phillips. I'm not sure who else they have, but the Steelers have Watt. All these teams have elite pass rushers that will not allow Lamar to do that. So, not something that we should get used to. Yeah, not something we should get used to. But
I will say though, with Josh Allen and the Jaguars, he's pretty much their only pass rushing threat. If you neutralize him, you're.
I haven't really watched them actually too much this year. I know they've drafted the other guy, didn't they? Draft another pass rusher? Did he get hurt?
Yeah, last year, Troy Walker, but he hasn't been that great. He's been okay.
Okay. Yeah, well, I think that wraps up offense.
Yeah, we've talked extensively about offense, but honestly, defense was was all over the place. We had really good drives and really bad drives. We lost Kyle Hamilton halfway through the game, and just everything kind of dipped after that, but we still didn't break. We really showed that we're a bend, don't break defense. And when it mattered the most, we forced a punt that resulted in us winning.
Yeah, and like you said, with Kyle Hamilton, when he got hurt, they were showing the stats from when he was in the game versus when he was out of the game. When he was in the game, the Rams averaged only 4 yards per play. When he was out of the game, the Rams averaged 7 yards per play. So he's worth 3 yards per play, which is huge. And then, the big story that I am going to keep honing in on is our rush defense. Kyron Williams ran 25 times for 114 yards. Granted, that's probably not the greatest, significant average, but it just seemed like time and time again when he was getting the ball, he was making a guy miss, and he was getting 5, 6, 7 yards a time.
He was very hit or miss. We adjusted very well to him in the second half, but then later on in the game,
I'll say that. The second half, he had
a really big first half.
Yes. And but he still had a few runs in the second half. We didn't totally neutralize him, but we definitely did a much better job.
Yeah.
Cooper Kupp had 8 catches for 115 yards and a touchdown. He was the leading. Yeah, he was the leading receiver. Nakua had another 80-something yards receiving. Demarcus Robinson.
That was massive. That drop.
It was. Puka Nakua's drop was massive. And then, I would probably do the same thing if I was going across the middle versus our Ravens defense. You're not going to make it out of there alive most times.
Not wearing gloves either.
I don't think he was. From what I saw, he had his fingers taped.
What is the benefit of taping your fingers? Is it any better than gloves?
People say in the rain, it's better to tape your fingers than wear the gloves because the wetness is a little bit better on tape than it is on gloves.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Is that actually true?
Yeah. Well, for that thing, it literally was him just turning his head upfield to look to run after the catch, and the ball didn't even hit the palm of his hand. It hit the backside of his hand.
Yeah.
So, like I said earlier, defensively, McVay was using quick motions to create leverage issues with our coverage, and I think that was a big component to their success offensively. A lot of times we would get caught blitzing, and I think especially with Cooper Kupp, Stafford was just floating the ball up and just letting him run under it when he knew he had good leverage.
They've got that connection that Lamar and Andrews have. It's just they're telekinetic.
Yeah, and then I think just going back to Kyron Williams, I think he is definitely top 5 running back in the NFL after watching him, and just across the league, I would put him up there with I think Christian McCaffrey's probably number 1. I think you got Saquon Barkley's up at the top, probably number 2. Trying to think who's the other top. I would put a healthy Nick Chubb up there at 3. And
Bruce Hall was pretty good at one point, but then the Jets kind of fail with him.
Yeah. Who else at running back would you say are top guys in the NFL? You got Bijan Robinson still trying to prove himself.
Some people might say Alvin Kamara at one point, but not really anymore.
I would go ahead and put him in there, but I wouldn't consider him like a every down running back either.
No. Did you say Pollard?
I don't consider him a top running back, to be honest. I would put Kyron Williams ahead of him.
Yeah. He's definitely been more productive for the Rams than Pollard has been for the Cowboys, but the Cowboys have also been passing very well as of late, even though they're more of a run-heavy team.
And you can say Austin Eckler, but he's kind of had a down year.
Garbage. The whole Chargers have been garbage.
I would put Breece Hall up there.
Yeah. Said that.
I would put Kenneth Walker up there, potentially. But I would say Kyron Williams to me is around that 4 or 5 and top running backs.
Well, McVay is just so good at scheming for a running back and just scheming an offense in general, so it makes sense. It makes so much
Yeah,
sense.
I mean, I still think
Kind
Kyron
of
Williams in any offense would be pretty good, just because he always makes that first guy miss, and his stats have been unreal this year. But in the past game, we only had 2 sacks. Matabike had one. Travis Jones had one. One thing I noticed with Travis Jones is we actually ended up playing him at the same time as Michael Pierce instead of subbing them back and forth for one
Yeah.
another. Travis Jones wound up coming in as the 3 technique. And we had Michael Pierce in at the nose tackle, and so we were playing some 4 down fronts, I believe, more so than usual. And I guess that was just trying to get bigger guys on the field, trying to stop that run.
Yeah, and it worked. I mean, Travis Jones had quite a few pressures. He almost had another sack. He almost had 2. He was making a lot of pressure. So
Yeah, I like him much more than I like Broderick Washington.
yeah, I could agree there. I think that it's okay though. I mean, Travis Jones will. What was he? What round was he?
Second, I think.
Was he second or was he fourth
I thought he was maybe I
or
don't
third or something?
remember. Travis Jones, Ravens. He was drafted in the 3rd round.
Yeah, so we have him for one more year after this year, and then we'll have to re-sign him. So
Gotcha. Yeah, but I would say, only 2 sacks is a big result of Stafford just getting the ball out very quickly. He knew when the blitz was coming and was just putting the ball up in places where only his receivers could catch it. So he did a really good job with that. But the story of the day, I would say, like we said in the beginning, was Kyle Hamilton on our defense not being in, and how big of a loss that was for us.
yeah,
He just does so much for our defense.
we kind of got a little exposed there afterwards. Millette just kind of getting torched once or twice. I'll be honest. It does show how much of a difference it makes when Kyle Hamilton is on the field. I mean, if that was a long-term injury, I'd say we'd be pretty close to screwed.
Definitely. It would be a huge hit on our defense. The other guy that I think had a bad game, and I know it was his first game back, was Marlon Humphrey. And I wouldn't even say it was a bad game. It was really just one drive in particular where he was just awful.
Yeah.
The last drive where they scored on, and it was like 3 consecutive plays they targeted him. He had a chance to redeem himself with the interception in the end zone, and he didn't make the play. That was a little bit annoying.
That was a hard one to make, but still, I mean, like,
you expect a guy that's supposed to be a top corner in the league to make that play, and he didn't. So to me, I would say he's kind of in that spot where he's getting older. I think Brandon Stevens has surpassed him as our number 1 corner for sure. He's getting a little bit of injury prone. He's had multiple injuries this year alone, preseason and then in the season. And so I think Marlon's going to have to take a pay cut at some point.
Yeah, he's getting up there.
He's got to produce. Yeah. But I'm not going to completely lose faith in him, because I will say throughout the most of the game, he was pretty much on point. It was just that one drive. And coming off an injury, he's probably out of shape a little bit. I didn't see them rotate corners too much, which they probably should have done like we did with our tackles. We probably should have rotated Marlon out a few drives and put in Darby.
I think the thing with Marlon is he's like very solid. He just every once in a while gets beat on a big play.
I think the dumbest thing for me was when they did a double move in the 4th quarter when they had barely any time left, and he bid on it, knowing that they have to take a shot deep. So I'm just like, let them catch the ball for 10 yards and tackle the guy. Do that. Don't let them give you a 30, 40-yard gain by biting on a double move and letting the guy be wide open.
Right.
So that was my most annoying thing with him. I would say final thoughts, though. Thank God Kyle Hamilton will be back sooner than later. Lamar Jackson, again, came in clutch. And Tylan Wallace, one of the greatest stories of the season for the Ravens. And that was an all-time Ravens game. I think that will go down when you look back at the end of the season. This game is going to be the one that you look back on as your favorite game.
I think that the biggest thing we got from this game is, number one, Kyle Hamilton is not hurt long term. And number two, our offense continued to gel in a way that we need it to make up for the Mark Andrews injury if we want to win a Super Bowl.
Yep. We are continuing to progress. And you know what? I'll give credit to Todd Monken. I think he did a really good job of coming up with some passing schemes that we have not seen in the years past, where he was able to get some double moves going. We got Isaiah Likely wide open on that busted coverage. And I won't say that that's just because it was the defense screwing up. I think it was Monken knowing there was a flaw in their coverage and designing that play and calling it at the right time.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think the biggest thing going forward will be, how does Mike McDonald adjust with how he was attacked this week? How are we going to make adjustments going forward? Because this Rams system, you're going to see with the 49ers and the Dolphins, those all come off that same system.
Trevor Lawrence had a really rough outing against the Browns. I think we have an opportunity to have a statement game on the road. More on that on Thursday, but really, I think that is a good opportunity for us to capitalize on this momentum and carry us on to the 49ers game.
At the same time, it is very easy for us to look ahead to that 49ers game too.
No, we can't.
I'm saying it will be very, very easy. It's almost kind of like a trap game.
Yeah, kind of is. They've lost 2 in a row. They haven't been playing good. Maybe they're a little bit of an afterthought. We've won 3 straight. Is it 3 or 4 now?
Let's see. We've won 3 straight.
We've won 3 straight. We're tied for leading the AFC. Yeah, this very well could be a trap game, even though the Jaguars are conventionally better than most trap game opponents.
It's just because of who we play after them is why I say that.
No, I totally agree. And you know what? You're right.
And I will also say we, over the time, have not played great against athletic quarterbacks.
How healthy did Trevor Lawrence look yesterday, in your opinion?
Better than I expected.
Yeah?
I think by the time we play them on Sunday, he'll be pretty close to 100%.
Okay. All right. I still think we'll be able to score on their defense, though.
Yeah, I'm not worried about our offense. They're ticking right now, and so it's more so how does our defense play? Jacksonville has a weak defense. They have, with Trevor Lawrence at the helm, they're pretty good. Travis Etienne, they got some weapons. Ingram is a good tight end, and if we don't have Hamilton to guard him, tight ends have kind of eaten us up a little bit this year. So definitely have to get after Trevor Lawrence, and but we'll get into that again, like you said, on Thursday. I think that wraps up this post-game podcast.
Yeah. Well, you guys have a good week, and we will see you guys on Thursday to talk about the Jacksonville Jaguars hosting our Baltimore Ravens next Sunday night.
Prime time.
So give us a like, subscribe, and tell your friends about the pod, and we'll be back.
Yes, sir. We'll see y'all. Have a good week.